everyone, welcome to another episode of Get Jashed. I'm excited to start 2024. Full disclosure, we're recording this in 2023, so I've got my 2023 face on, but I'm excited to start 2024 with this particular guest. So today I have joining me Sloan Wilkins. Sloan started his journey at 17 at his local Westpac branch and has now built a 30-year career in banking and financial planning, specialising in leading financial planning teams. But before you switch off and go, oh, that's a potentially dry way to start the year, there is a lot of interest that I have in Sloan's work, because in 2021, he ventured into his passion, which is launching his financial coaching business. Sloan's mantra is be the boss of your money, and he works with clients to foster a deeper and more intentional relationship with their money and support them to proactively chase down their best life. And if you know me and my work at all, you'll have picked up on some of those words that really resonate with me, which is being intentional, being in relationship with, feeling well with, even being the boss of a little bit as well. So thank you so much for your time and for joining me, Sloan.
So excited to be here. G'day to everyone out there, and welcome to 2024. It feels like a little bit of a time warp, but here we are. It'll soon be upon us, won't it, Jess?
Yeah, we're basically there, really. We're really are. But I wanted you to be the first guest, as I've mentioned to you off recording. I wanted you to be the first guest because the holidays can be a time that is very financially stressful. And if we're not going to dwell on this, but if we look back at 2023, a lot of people struggled for various reasons: interest rate rises, inflation, all of the stuff that are words that we're not going to dwell on too much, because we're going to go into a forward-thinking conversation here. But I wanted to start with you as a guest because I know that you share a lot of really useful, practical advice around, like you say, being the boss of your money, but being in a wellness relationship with your money as well.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
I think that's why we resonate with each other a bit as well in our
Yeah,
work.
I think
So
so.
I thought it would be a useful but uplifting way for people to start the year as well. So your business, Executive Financial Coaching, you work with private clients in that way. What does that sort of coaching look like? Just to sort of paint the picture a little bit for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I work with most of the people I tend to work with, and maybe this is a function of communicating a lot via LinkedIn, but they tend to be professional people and or business owners. So they're not necessarily people who are struggling. They tend to be very time poor. And so there's already a really sort of solid income. However, they need to be, here's those words again, more purposeful and more intentional with what they're doing with their money, because we tend to sort of let things happen around us and we respond and react as we're going, rather than maybe being mindful about what we're trying to achieve and moving towards that bigger picture on the hill, that flag that we're moving towards, and establishing our most important goals. So in essence, in a two-word summary, it's the micro and the macro. Micro being cash flow control, that scary B word, budgeting. It does apply no matter what your level of income is. Exactly, and that's a normal reaction. We might dispel that myth as we go along.
Yeah.
And the other one is macro, which is really the most important goals, those things that we're gravitating towards. And that's a different sort of energy when we really tune into what's truly important to us. That's determination, that's burning desire, as opposed from the things we're about to do, New Year's resolutions, which tend to be short-term motivation and fizzle out really quickly. So how do we connect those two things?
Yeah, well, like even with New Year's resolutions, I don't call them resolutions, because to me that indicates that there's something to be resolved, like there's something wrong. So I come back to the word intentions all the time, constantly. So it's like, yeah, what's your intention? So I imagine a lot of the work that you do in that way, like along with the very practical and very needed, is learning the intentions of the people who come to see you. It's like, what do you actually want? Like you said burning desires, and I love burning desires as like a as a very real concept, but as like a connection point of, oh yeah, what is my burning desire? What is
Yeah.
it that I want? And obviously, a lot of what we want in life requires money and requires us to be
Yeah.
able to function in that way, but even, yeah, on the survival level too. So yeah.
100%. Yeah. And so it is really useful to think about that, because without intention, money does tend to flow into our house and then flows out. And if
Mm,
we're not the ones who are directing it, which is really sort of my definition of what a budget is, it's the story you give to your money of how you would like it to serve you. And you're in charge of writing that story. You're the boss of your money. And it's useful to connect that with the things that actually mean something to you, rather than just random spending. That way, you've actually achieved something useful with your money. You are moving closer to that personally designed version of your best life as you
mm.
look after your money on a month-to-month basis.
This could be just how I sort of see it, but it sounds like it's about being in relationship with your money. Like
Yeah,
I kind of see money as and I'm no expert, but like I kind of see money as uh kind of like an entity, right? Like I try and treat it as if it's a
totally.
friend, because it's like,
Yeah,
well, if I'm appreciating it, then it'll want to hang around. Like, there's
yeah.
a lot of like to be said about being in relationship with money, and like you said, how you spend it and what you spend it on in a way that isn't just mindless, because then it's not just being in control of that, but I don't know, that actually feels better in a way than
Yeah, and
the
I
old
do
dry
regularly
words
talk
of
about
finance.
without going too new agey, I do talk to my
Yeah.
clients about the relationship that they have with their money. And sometimes people have never even thought of that phrase or stopped to
Mm,
question that.
yeah.
Yet we think about it in other contexts in our life there as well. And it is definitely something that has an energy flow to it. When it comes down to it, the money that comes into our life is an exchange for our time, our effort, and our expertise. So we're putting something
Mm,
out there, and we're getting something in return. However, we can also get in the way and disrupt that flow a little bit, and that's sometimes if we, let's compare gratitude for our money with maybe begrudging acceptance of the fact that we have to earn a living, or
mm-hmm,
abundance with a scarcity mindset. All of those things live within inside us, and what we see in the world around us is a manifestation of what we think and believe, and what we
mm,
believe is possible for us, what we believe we deserve even. So that's actually the third main area that I'm working on with clients: money, and how to use it productively, how to have the processes and structures in place. Most important goals that we just mentioned there, those burning desires. And the third area is mindset, another M. I do like my alliteration. But
mm,
so what habits and behaviors do we have in place already? Some that are serving us, some that maybe we need to leave behind because they no longer serve us, even if they once did. And what do we have as beliefs about what is possible for us, but also maybe excavating the surface a little bit and looking for some of those self-limiting beliefs that can creep in without us even noticing that we've adopted them.
oh, speaking my language. It's to me, it's all of those things, right? It's um you mentioned like even deserving, and like, so if we think about, this is the start of the new year, so if people might be listening to this at any stage in the year once it's out, but if we assume that most people are going to listen to it at the start of the new year, and if you're setting your New Year's, I'm going to say resolutions or intentions, which I
Yep.
encourage you to maybe look at them as intentions instead, but that's a whole other conversation. Uh, but if you're setting those ideas of what you want your year ahead to look like, and some of that's going to involve money, and it doesn't always have to be from a business owner's perspective. Like, I am a business owner, so it's easy to kind of be like, yeah, it's from this. But if you are an employee, it's equally as relevant, because when you consider what you deserve and work on that mindset of, oh, I can never work hard enough to earn this, or whatever it is, sometimes it's the idea of what you deserve could be getting in the way of you asking for a pay rise that you are probably very entitled to, without
Mm.
even considering inflation in that, but also very
Yeah.
much considering inflation in that. Like, I work in the recruitment side a lot as well, and I know they're saying, like, with a lot of their clients, that if you're not looking at like a 10% pay increase for your employees, then you're going to be starting to like lose out on that. So
Yes.
again, not the expert, don't like say she said exactly 10%, but it's different per industry and per sector. But if you really consider that, you know, sometimes you deserve to, well, not sometimes, all the time, everyone deserves to have a living wage. Everyone deserves to sort of be able to easily survive and live. Then if you have this, like, just I've kind of hooked onto that piece because it stood out to me. But if you have this idea of like, well, I don't deserve that, like, you know, I work part-time, so I don't deserve more. It's like, well, I would argue that people who work part-time show up even harder than full-time. That, again, separate conversation. But there's so many things that can get in the way of you just asking for what could help improve your situation.
Yeah, and that happens, I think, both internally and externally. The external part you've just talked about there, in a really good example of asking for a pay rise, etc., being aware of what's going on in the market for your role and your level of experience there. The internal side is, I think, something that's we should also spend some time looking at, because we're in total control about that, and that's maybe what we give ourselves permission to do. It sometimes could be putting our hand up for, you know, a project that we think would be some really great experience for us, but maybe it's a little bit beyond my capabilities. Can I stretch enough, and will I go for it? And when we know the differences between men and women there as well, you know, blokes will just put on the bravado. You know, they might tick 4 out of the 10 requirements, but they'll still put their hand up. Women might tick 7 out of the 10 and maybe still think, oh, I don't have the last 3. You know, and that's a gross generalization, but I've heard lots of people talk about
also, it's
the bravado of
because
blokes in that way.
Yeah.
And so what we give ourselves permission for, whether we think we're entitled to or whether we envisage ourselves in a certain role level within our organisation, or whether we're even brave enough to think that we could possibly change industries if we're not finding our current one fulfilling, you know, what's possible for us with training, etc. That may not happen, you know, in the next 6 months or even the next 12 months, but you can put yourself on a pathway to somewhere different over time if you are being intentional and thinking about where you want to go. So I really like that sense of, yes, making sure that you're well rewarded, but also thinking about, well, how am I going to jump in the driver's seat myself?
Yeah, because it has to start from you as well. And this is something that I work with clients on in similar but different capacities too. It's like, you know, it's other people might see your value, but you're the one that has to actually lead from your value and start from that place and ask for what you want, because it's kind of modeling that behavior, like, hey, I am open to this, and then other people will go, oh, of course you are, yeah, you know, like we can't just sort of sit around waiting for other people. It's lovely when they do, but like,
so when we step up and put ourselves on the radar, you know, we give ourselves that chance.
And we have to sort of take ownership with that, and money in our finances is a big part of that, in terms of like, we have to start to take the ownership first, and then it kind of money's like a lagging indicator of how we're doing in every other way around that. So you mentioned being in relationship with money, and like over 30 years, I imagine you've expanded and explored that relationship with yourself. I also know that you've been married to your wife Michelle for 25 years and you have 2 children.
Yes.
How do you, this is kind of like a double-header question, but how do you let what you've learned in your work seep into your family life, or do you, or like, what's the relationship or the dynamic that blend the two there?
Consider the family situation a bold experiment in initially, and also my single life, and then our married life with our children. That part of it was, you know, pretty much a bold experiment in how to get it wildly wrong. So I've been there, done that, and then how to turn that around and get it right. So that's sort of a little bit where my passion for the work that I do comes from. But it also harks way back to when I was 12 and my family went bankrupt. Mum and dad went bankrupt, and, you know, they lost their business, the family business, and we lost our home. And so, you know, it's a really influential age there. And, you know, even though my name wasn't on the mortgage as a 12-year-old, you know, I let the bank take things from me that day as well, self-confidence,
Mm,
self-belief, and all of that as well. And, eventually we even lost our family unit over that. Mum and dad separated, quite a number
yeah.
of years later. But that sort of, without realizing it, left a little bit of a hole inside me that I tried to fill with stuff and things and material items. And so, I qualified to go to uni, but my family couldn't afford to send me. I was in a rural area with no
Oh,
local things. So I studied while I was working, but I went straight to work for the Westpac Bank in my hometown of Emerald in central Queensland. And
oh
then,
yeah. So yeah, small town.
yeah, small town, about 6,000 people when I was growing up, a bit bigger these days, but still a small town. And so, and I was fortunate then the industry was starting to change, and meritocracy was coming through. So I was able to sort of do really well with my career really early. Bought my first investment property when I was 20, so I was doing some smart
Wow.
things and maxing
Mm,
out super contributions, etc., but also spending like an absolute trooper. So by the time I got to the end of my 20s, I definitely had some smart things going, but I had some dumb stuff happening too, where I was spending more than I earned, and
but
every
also,
shiny new thing I had
yeah,
to have it.
is it your 20s if you don't have some dumb stuff happening? I don't know.
Yeah, like I think if you're over the age of 12, you've probably made a money mistake, and we need to be kind to ourselves when
Yeah.
that happens, and pick up and learn from it. We can only ever start from where we are, but that gives me
Mm,
a real sense of passion and drive to help other people. And coming back to your question around the family, we did make some big changes together, myself and my wife. Like we stopped using credit cards many years ago. That is not part of our life. And even when we were paying them off fortnightly in full, we were still spending way more than we intended to
yeah.
spend just because. And they know
Mm,
that. They're designed to do that. And my kids now, the youngest is 17, the oldest is 23, and bless their cotton socks, they've listened to dad in one area
oh
of
my
their life.
God.
So, they're wonderful young people, and
Yeah.
really pleased to see the way that they are looking after their money and avoiding many of the pitfalls. So I've been really open about sharing some of that drama with them, and that's my message out there to other people as well. Life is too short to worry about money.
Mm,
There's always going to be financial challenges, but you can put yourself in a situation where you do have a stronger financial foundation and progressively build your financial confidence so that, it really spills over into the rest of your life, because there's no getting away
yeah.
from money. We just,
No,
we just, we just
there's
need
no
to, yeah,
like,
know
but
how to
it's
operate in that
also,
environment.
yeah, it gets to be something that like that we see it how we are. So if we sort of assume that money makes people bad, like I
Mm,
don't believe that. I think money makes people more of who they really are if they're
yes,
left unchecked.
so true.
So it's like money can be a good thing and be used for good too. But I'm curious about you mentioned when you were young, like when you were 12, your family went bankrupt, or
Yeah.
your well, how would you word that? Because I said family, but I would say your parents is more
Well,
accurate.
that,
But your
yeah,
12-year-old self took that as, oh, this is me too, right? Like,
exactly. Yeah. And, and I have long described it as our family went, but, it was
yeah,
actually mum and dad went. So,
mm-hmm,
they lived it and had
yeah.
to feel much more of the emotional turmoil around that. But,
So
yeah,
it's
obviously we were living in the ripple effects of that
of
as
course it's
kids.
like it's not your story, but it was still your experience.
Yeah. Good description. Yeah.
Mm. Do you think that, like, so you said that you sort of just were spending and everything, like, do you think that that was a direct result of sort of feeling like a lot of things were taken away at that point, that you're like kind of, I don't want to use the word hoarding as such, because I don't mean it in that like
Yeah.
the extreme mental illness kind of hoarding, but like the
It was
collecting
definitely,
things,
yeah, it was definitely an acquiring phase of life where,
yeah.
you know, I thought the external projections said something about me more than they actually did.
Yeah.
And so, it's how one's, and that's where the whole keeping up with the Joneses
Mm,
comes from. It's that competitive consumerism.
yeah.
So it's something new and shiny. I had to have
Mm.
it, particularly technology. And these days, and for many years now, I've worked through that and realised, oh wow, that's an interesting pattern. When you start to sort of become a little bit more self-aware and observe these things, and
Yeah.
that's where money mindfulness is really useful there as well. Just being aware of what decisions I'm actually making and what decisions is maybe my subconscious still driving from something that happened 20 years ago. And that's
Mm.
still the story that's playing underneath all this.
Well, it's forever work. It's not like, it's not a one and done, like, oh, I resolved that, I'm cured.
Yes.
There's no cure. It's not like, and I even like the word cure says there's something wrong. It's just more, no, there's something to learn through. There's something to grow through. With that particular story for yourself of the acquiring, because like that external sort of perception and everything, was there a moment, like, was there a singular moment that you realized, or was it sort of like a progressive realization of, oh, this is what's going on for me, and then how did you start to shift that?
Yeah, I started to realize more and more that the things I was buying weren't doing the job that I was giving them, which was to
Really?
make me happy.
Yeah.
So you start to, and I love the way, and I'm going to paraphrase it and probably butcher it, but I love the
Yeah.
way the minimalists in their first film, the minimalists, they talk about, we imagine that we're going to buy this item and that experience and this thing here, and somehow that will add up to a wonderful life for us.
Mm.
But we tend to notice, if we're paying attention, that those things don't actually work. And I did
Yeah.
that in my career as well. I was chasing a certain level and kept pushing hard from it, and even a couple of years out from actually getting to where I wanted to ultimately get, I realized that it wasn't making me happy, but I still kept running after it because I didn't have a substitute.
Yeah, you're like, well, I guess this is it though. Like, what's the alternative? What
Yeah.
do I do? Yeah.
Plenty of people run into that at some point in their life, and that's probably where the midlife crisis comes from. For me, it was starting to
Probably.
happen even earlier
Yeah.
than that, but
Yeah.
just
Well, I think we have more tools now, and we're able to share more collectively, like, as a society in general, and collectively we
mm,
we're able to learn a bit quicker, so it doesn't necessarily have to wait till midlife, and sometimes it takes longer, like, it doesn't, it's
yeah.
different for everyone. But so what happened when you started to realize that?
Well, I really started to shift my behavior on purpose,
Mm. There's
and
that word again. Oh,
yeah, okay. Yeah, I use it a lot, so it probably weaves into many different
it's
conversations,
fine,
because
yeah.
I think it's so important to try and be, as in my language, the boss of your money, but more
Mhm.
broadly, the boss of your life.
Yeah.
We so often just let things happen to us. So I cannot remember a particular event. Probably was getting to the point where just that sense of total frustration, where
Mm.
I'm just over living this way, where
Mhm.
even though the bills were paid, everything was always happening on time, there was just that sense that I'm not really making any progress.
Mm.
Of course, the longer term progress was there with the smarter things that were still continuing along the baseline, but I just didn't feel like I had much freedom in and around my life, and it felt like I'm going to work to earn the money to buy the things that I don't really care about. It's the old story, to impress the people that I don't really care about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Personally.
There's a series of years that I remember my most common question was, what's the point? Like not of life, but like, what's the point of this? What are we doing this for? Like, what
Yeah.
what are we doing? And yeah, it's this, um I talk about it as like a quality of life. It's like,
Mm,
well, you could do the things, but is it contributing to a quality of life, or is it just giving you these most sometimes mostly false milestones that you're like, oh yeah, tick, but why, like, what is the
yeah.
point?
Yeah.
And I
And how
see,
long
like,
does that tick
yeah,
resonate for?
yeah,
You know?
exactly. It's like, and what does it mean? Like, it's all the deep questions, but it's the real question. I'm like, what does it mean though? What
Yeah.
is the point? um and I get what you mean about like the belongings. I'll never be a minimalist, because for me, it's like, I like the character in the things that I have around me. It's not that I need a
Yeah.
lot of them, and it's not to try and like acquire or anything, but it's like, oh,
Mm,
but if it has character, if it tells a little story, or if it, something for
yeah.
that, that's what I like about it. But also for the bigger things that I've more recently been able to invest in, I see it as an investment, even if it's a car. And I know that there's a whole school of thought there, but for me, it was like, well, I'm not buying a car to make me feel a certain way, but I'm going to buy it in order for it to support how I already feel.
Yep.
And keep doing more of that. Like if it's like a supportive tool for my business in a way, then I'm like, cool, this is what feels good, rather than, oh, I'm going to buy like the fancy new car just to make me feel good. And like, that's not like,
Yeah.
that doesn't resonate. Because then again, it's like, well, what's the point? It makes me feel good for what? Like,
Yeah, exactly. And you reach that point where you start to realize actually all of this is driven by me internally anyway, and how I allow myself to feel, or what importance I place upon certain things. So therefore,
yeah.
I can actually start to be more in control of that story and not place myself under the pressure unless I truly want something in the
Yeah.
external material world.
That's it. And I imagine that even those experiences, even way back to you at 12 years old, right? I imagine that's what informs a lot of your coaching work, or even like, like you have led financial planning teams in the past, like for a long time as well. That's sort of how we met. But like, you've led those teams. So
Yeah, and I
you're
can,
mentoring in that position as well. So whether it's for your
yeah,
clients or for your your team members that you've previously or currently still work with, like that would inform how you're able to speak to those things, because you have that level of understanding of, like, I wasn't born into this brain that saw things exactly how I see it now. I grew into this brain.
yeah. Look, and I definitely have seen a lot and been able to learn vicariously through the planner's work, and then through contact with the clients as well, and hearing their stories and talking with them. And one thing that really interested me was I came to nicely classify a group of people as the miserable millionaires. And
Yeah.
that wasn't anything against them. They were really good people. However, they had material wealth, but often in the pursuit of that, they had destroyed some other things in their life. It could have been their health that had slipped away. Could be in the pursuit of their career. The work-life balance was completely gone, which has impacted family relationships. They've lost their marriage. Sometimes their kids weren't talking to them.
Yeah.
So, they had everything on the balance sheet that you might like, but the rest of their life was in disarray, just because of that lack of balance there. And
Yeah.
elevating something over taking a engaged approach to what actually is meaningful to me.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that's a really good reminder at the beginning of the year as well, to sort of look ahead. And no matter what financial position you're in, because sometimes you need to work hard to get into like the safety side. Like, there's different
Yeah.
areas of the spectrum entirely, but like it's this reminder of, I like the well-being of like, yeah, take care of yourself. And this is me saying this as someone who's about to go into the holiday break. But this is going to come out just after the holiday break, but it is still that feeling of, yeah, let's switch off, or let's have moments where we do just take care of ourselves along the way, because
Absolutely.
sometimes that gives us more of that quality of life, even if we are working towards a goal, even if it is, feeling dire in some ways. It's like we have to sort of do the best we can. It's not always going to be perfect, it's never going to be perfect, but we can have to do the best we can to just stay connected to the why and what is the point.
Yes.
And yes, absolutely, like money isn't bad, so yes, like have money, everyone, like get that, but also make sure make sure it's in relationship with your connection with yourself and your life and your people, whoever they may be.
And you use the word security then, which to me makes me think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the safety and security. We need to satisfy that at the bottom, and then we start to move up the hierarchy. And that for me is a really important element of looking after your finances there as well. We want to have those bases covered, but I think for so many people, finances feel like they're right in their face, because that's what they're dealing with day to day, and there's little that they can do, it feels like, to get beyond that daily, weekly grind. But as we start to do that and build financial confidence, and this is my aspiration for people, not just to build their wealth and pile up the dollars, which I can help people do, but it doesn't mean anything or it doesn't have value in the absence of human endeavor. We need to know where we're going. That's where the values come in. But beyond that, when we start to get to a fairly strong position or stronger position ourselves, then we start to look outside and think about, well, what are our relationships like? How can I be serving my community and making a contribution, etc., and developing the self and moving towards whatever self-actualization looks like for you at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So I think it's enormously relevant.
Yeah, and as some like I've been through that too, like where it's this ambient stress where you're just like constant, like it's just ambient, even if it's not right in front of your face, though often it is at that point. But like it's just this ambient stress where you're constantly like, but can I do that? Because can I do that? Because can I do like what? How am I going to take care of my needs? And it's from a very privileged position to be able to say, coming onto that other side, at least, at that next baseline is like, oh, that's a lot. That's all taken care of. And I know that it's taken care of. So now I can start to feel a little more excited about doing some, like seeing friends again, or, I can kind of engage with life again, or, oh, I feel more creative because we all know that like once you sort of base needs are taken care of, creativity is way easier. All of those things.
And the good news is you don't need to solve those problems to start feeling better. Like once you've got a plan and a pathway and you start to feel like you're seeing the earliest signs of incremental progress, that confidence starts to build.
That's it. It's like, it's like one, again, I say this, ask me how I know, but it's like if you have something that's sort of that ambient stress and causing that ambient stress, you can sit there and ignore it, but it's just going to linger, and it's just like it's never going to go away until. But then if you address it and go, okay, what can I do right now, or what can I set into place as a plan, even if it doesn't immediately solve it in this moment, but it is working, like it is actually moving forward to that new baseline that you're working towards, whatever, like in whatever position you might be in, your brain immediately goes like, it's the part of your brain that's like, oh cool, there's a plan in place. Oh, something's taken care of. Okay, it's not like necessarily free and clear yet, but it is, oh cool, I've done what I can. Now I can actually relax and just read this book, or now I can relax and go for that walk with a friend, or something that just re-engages you in life as well. But you mentioned also like things that you can do in your community. So recording this at the end of 2023, the year of Taylor Swift, I think
long may she reign.
Long may she reign. But in that way of, there's a lot of people that are all eat the rich and billionaires are bad. And again, I'm not going to get into that conversation here and now because it's very nuanced. But she just received, I would say earned, billionaire status. Like she's worth, like, I don't know if she has $1 billion in the bank, I doubt that, but she's worth $1 billion, right? But what she does, what we hear about what she does with her money, she pays her road crew massive bonuses that change their lives. She donates, this is what I hear, so again, some of it, like, this is what I hear, she donates massively to food banks in every city that she visits. And this is like at the very extreme end, right? Like we're just mere mortals here, which are beautiful mere mortals, but this is just to give the idea of like how some of that story of money and that mindset of, well, if I have more, then what do I do with it other than spend it on acquiring things? It's like, when we have more, we can give more. When we have more, we can do more. And I love using that as like, admittedly extreme, but like I love using that as my mental example of, she donates to food banks, that changes people's lives. She's like, the bonuses she's given to her team have allowed them to buy their home, or whatever it is, like it changes people's lives. So when we think about getting and like working on our mindset around our money and And yes, it's a very survival thing, and yes, it's a very privileged thing in a lot of ways. But when we think about that, it is about us. But because it is about us, it then gets to benefit other people, because
Yeah,
then
look, this
when we have more, we can do more.
exactly, and give a little until you can give a lot, is
Mhm.
a saying that I've heard before. But gratitude and generosity are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Normally, one develops the other, and it's really useful to feel that sense of gratitude, even if you are struggling. There is
Mm.
something you can find gratitude for. A walk outside in the local park will quickly
Yeah.
alert you to that.
That's it.
Um,
Like, I like
so,
appreciation, because sometimes
mm,
gratitude, and this is something I learned from my coach, but sometimes gratitude feels a little like I'm making it up, like I'm faking it,
yeah,
because I'm like,
yeah,
well, everything's turned to shit and I don't really feel very grateful right now, but I can appreciate things, and it's the same
yeah. That's a
feeling.
good word. I like it too.
Yeah. But like, speaking of what you can do when you have more, like, you do a lot of work in your community. You're the vice president of your local BNI chapter. And you also serve as the president. This part I didn't know. You also serve as the president of the management committee at your local Buddhist monastery.
Hmm.
Like, that's a
So it's
lot of
been
community work, and that is still demanding on, like, your time and energy and attention. But it sounds like you've sort of gotten yourself into the position where you can give that too. How does that work, like, feed into helping your clients and their financial well-being, or how has it
yeah.
informed your own well-being, for that matter?
Yeah, oh, it's made massive shifts in my life, and I think it's so important, personally and for others. And
Mm.
in one thing I'll just call out before I forget it, generosity in giving doesn't have
Mm.
to mean financially either.
Yes. Yeah.
So we can give of our time, we can give of our
Mm.
expertise. If we're volunteering for something, I was helping 2 weeks ago badly wrap Christmas presents in a local shopping
Was that
little
the
kiosk.
actual title of it? Like, did they play on that, or is that you just sort of saying,
Well,
hey,
they
I'm just
should
going
have
to
the
own
day that
it?
I was there, but
Right. Okay.
it
I
was
think that'd be a
okay.
good, that'd be a great idea. They'd raise so much money if it was just titled, like, badly wrapped
Badly wrapped.
presents. Money goes to this charity, or whatever it
Yeah.
is. Be like, yeah, well, of course we'd
Yep.
support that.
But that didn't cost me anything other than my time, and it raised money
Mm,
for charity, and it was great to be
beautiful.
involved in. Had a good time. So yeah,
Mm,
mentoring others, which can be happening formally or informally, and it doesn't need to be someone that is below you in a hierarchy. It can be people
yeah.
who are at the same level or even above you, because we
Hmm.
all learn things from each other in different phases of, different areas of our life. Um,
Yeah.
but yes, I think it's essential because it changes the way you operate in the world there as well. If you are a person of generous and giving spirit,
Mm,
um, you know that, like, if we all imagine for a moment that type of person, that's typically someone we would gravitate towards. And
yeah.
so we don't do it for those reasons, but that's one of the payoffs. The payoffs is we get to feel it most for
Mm,
first and foremost, which is fantastic. It's a really wonderful feeling to be giving to something and making a contribution, and truthfully being recognized for doing that
yeah.
by others as well. That's all very human stuff.
Totally human. Like, it's,
Yeah,
it's both. We get the personal fulfillment and enrichment of knowing that we've
yeah,
helped. Like, that's selfish in the best way. Like,
yeah,
it's like, selfish isn't bad in that way. Like, because it's like, yeah, of course, like, of course I want to feel good about this, but of course the overall impact is to change that person's life. But then it is superhuman to
mm,
have the recognition, because then we're like, oh, cool. And I wonder if that recognition, in part, even subconsciously, is going, oh, I'm modeling this. So if people are recognizing it in me, I wonder if they're going to see the possibilities for what they can do.
yeah. It's beautiful if that translates that way. And
Mm.
if you cannot see it, you cannot be it. So
Yeah.
it's good to
Yeah.
see that around us. And and there are opportunities that exist for people who are looking to advance their careers as well. And you don't have to be so transactional about it and think, oh, I'm just doing that so that I can get ahead. Well, that may or may not be one of the outcomes, but you get the benefit of it right there and then because you
Mhm.
feel it. Um, so I just think giving works on so many different levels, whichever way that you're going about doing that. And yeah, if we can all chip in and do our bit, we've got the chance of
Mm.
a better and better world progressively. And we can't fix everything, but what can we do right in front of us?
Yeah, that's it. And I think that at least in part, is the answer to my perpetual question of what is the point? It's like, well, it's the little things, and it's not trying to look at, like, take that big leap
Yep.
and go, oh, I'm trying to change the world completely over here. It's going, that'd be great, but also what can I do that, like, it's not discounting the ripple effect.
Yeah, exactly. And how I bring that to life with clients, to your question, is part of the most important goals. Like, I've got a model. I just don't ask what are your goals, because that leaves people hanging. We've got a model that we
Yeah,
work
like people
through.
get lost in the water. They're like, oh my God, where do
Yeah, it's very much a deer in the headlights type of stuff. But some of those areas that we jump through and have a conversation around is things like career and calling. Another one, friends and family, heart and spirit, home and lifestyle, purpose, principles, values, and vision. All those different types of areas that we jump in and explore those. And it's amazing what comes out of those conversations for themselves. Sometimes they're saying things that, they haven't said out loud or realized was actually in there, that was really speaking to them and they wanted to move towards. And that's a way of sort of extracting some really meaningful, most important goals that actually will deliver and support sustainable progress.
Yeah, that's it. And as we sort of start to wrap up, I want to point out to everyone that has continued to listen, even though I started this episode with, we're talking about finance and money, which can make sense. Like, I like the conversation now, like, I mean, like, in my life now, but there
Yep.
definitely was a time in life where I was like, nope, like, bye. Scary. So, like, whoever has stayed to listen, I know that they have now heard, like, that, like, the topic of money and the topic of finances, especially, and how you do that, is very, I mean, you said heart and soul, and I already had in my head, I'm like, yeah, it's very heart-led. It's very, like, inner connectedness, not just, this, like, not just, but yes, including, but not just the spreadsheets and the budget and everything. But honestly, I do love a spreadsheet. Like, I love tracking things because it's exciting, and then I get more creative with it. So you get to have both, like, money. I'm talking to people who may be in the season that I've definitely been in the past, like, around this topic, is money doesn't have to be this dry topic that's scary or that feels overly controlling of you. You get to be in this almost playful relationship with it, because you're co-creating, your life together. This is how it happens. So
yeah, it's good to get that balance. And I always get which side of the brain does what wrong. But, whichever is the logical side, that's sort of where the money and the spreadsheets and the
that's the left
decimal
side of the
points
brain, because it's
fits
like,
there.
yeah.
But engaging that other side is where and that's maybe similar to the micro macro thing that I was talking about there before as well. Connecting those two, is where we start to import that meaning to the financial side, and as a result of that, we get to uplift our outcomes and deliver on the stuff that's truly meaningful.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Well, to finish off, you've recently unveiled your latest initiative, that's aimed at helping everyday Aussies to win with money. So can you tell us more about that, what it's called, and then where people can follow you and your work?
Yeah. So that's a financial coaching membership offering. It's called everydaymoney.live. So that is the actual website you can go to, everydaymoney.live. I wanted the .live instead of .com.au because it definitely has a live component. It's not a course that you can download and you're left on your own. There is, no matter which part of your journey you're in, whether you're trying to save your first $1,000 to get a rainy day fund going, or at the other end of the spectrum, you've already paid off your house and you're now in the phase that you're continuing to grow and give. Anywhere on that spectrum, and there are the sort of defined progress steps, there's a fortnightly live call that's designed specifically for you and for that step. And so, it's delivered via Zoom. It's available on replay there, as well as other resources around that. So it's all about, I guess, making 2024 a year of transformation as much as possible for people, and getting them to be on purpose, be intentional with what they're doing, and start to become truly the boss of their money so that they can live that best life and make that progress, build that financial confidence. So that is something I'm really excited about, because in my private client work, which is the branding you see above there, executive financial coaching, I can only work with about 50 clients at once on rotation.
Which,
And
yeah,
so,
that's plenty. Like that's
yeah, that's a lot.
a lot.
But I've got a heart to help many more people. And, the scalable version is through everydaymoney.live.
Yeah.
So, let's say I grow that to 1,000. Well, that would otherwise take me 20 years to help that many people.
Yeah.
So that would
And it
be
also,
wonderful.
like, I see the word live and I know it's live, but it also makes me think of like live. It's like, how do you live your life? So I like that's in my head, there's the association there, but I like that association of, oh yeah, this is like, it's everydaymoney.live, but then it's about how I live and what I want that to look and feel like. So yeah,
And
I
probably
love
the
that.
easiest way to connect, Jess, is LinkedIn or Facebook. You'll find me under my name, Sloan Wilkins. So there's not too many of me floating around in the world. So just look for the one that's talking about finance.
Yeah, I'll include the links
Thank you
in
so much.
the show notes as well. But thank you so much for your time. This was such a great conversation as well. And I know that it's going to be useful for people at any stage in the year, but particularly as we step into the new year as well. So I really appreciate having you on and talking about all things of like that balance. It's very on
I feel
brand.
like we could talk a lot longer, which is probably a sign of a nice time to end.
Yeah,
So,
that's it.
that was so wonderful, Jess. Thank you for spending the time together. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.